admit it? The Strange Tale of Depsey, the Rabbit. Chapter 10. The Rift Confrontation. The mountain road curved ahead of Depsey like a question mark, each familiar landmark now twisted by memory. 2 days ago, he'd driven this same route with Oculus sitting rigid in the passenger seat, those 6 eyes staring straight ahead with mechanical compliance. Now the seat was empty, but Depsey could still hear the screaming. Even the maximum dose of ink couldn't suppress it completely. The sound had followed him through 48 hours of hiding. First at the motel with the curtains drawn, then driving aimlessly through back roads, anywhere Chuck and Lucy couldn't find him. His friends had been relentless in their pursuit. Phone calls that went unanswered, knocks on his dressing room door that he pretended not to hear, desperate searches through every corner of the playhouse. He'd counted the rings, 37 calls from Chuck, 23 from Lucy, each one a reminder that they were asking questions he couldn't answer, getting closer to truths that would destroy them both. 44, he reminded himself, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles went white beneath his cartoon gloves. Oculus made 40 the E. Just one more and it would end. He'd promised himself that much during the long, sleepless nights. 44 was the limit. After Felicia, no more letters, no more blood money, no more screaming. The engine and the sound of, the wind, nothing could drown out the sound of 6 eyes going wide with betrayal as they fell into green nothingness. Better to drive in silence and think about what came next. Felicia would be different, clean, professional. Those elegant branches would snap against the rift walls with a satisfying crack, not like Oculus's awful mechanical wailing. There was something almost poetic about it. The fig tree falling into cosmic void, bearing fruit for darkness instead of light. The thought brought him genuine anticipation, the first positive emotion he'd felt since Oculus's final performance. The ink jar rattled in his coat pocket as the car hit a pothole. Nearly empty now. He'd been dosing more frequently, trying to keep the memories at bay, but Oculus's 6-eyed stare kept bleeding through the chemical protection. Maybe after Felicia, he wouldn't need the ink anymore. Maybe the silence would finally come. His phone buzzed against the dashboard. Chuck again, probably. Or Lucy. They'd been searching for him with increasing desperation, and he'd become an expert at avoidance. Different routes to avoid their usual haunts, parking behind buildings, staying away from the playhouse entirely. But tonight's meeting would end all that. One final assignment, and then he could face his friends with clean hands. The letter crumpled in his free hand bore the familiar, elegant script. Meet at the mouth of the rift. Sunset. Final arrangements regarding FF. Simple, direct, exactly like all the others. Except this time, it felt different. Final. The last dance with darkness before stepping into whatever came after. The rift's cosmic glow appeared on the horizon, swirling lights that made the evening sky look sick. Depsey pressed harder on the accelerator. 45, and done. He could almost taste the freedom. Dash, dash, dash. The mouth of the rift opened before him like a wound in reality itself. Swirling green fog mixed with impossible lights, colors that had no names in any cartoon's palette. The cosmic rumbling that always accompanied the phenomenon seemed louder tonight, as if the rift sensed something significant was about to happen. Depsey parked his car and stepped into the alien atmosphere, already reaching for the crumpled letter in his pocket. He expected to find the usual empty meeting spot where he could set the scene, prepare mentally for what needed to be done. Instead, 2 figures stood silhouetted against the cosmic glow, and for a second, Depsey thought he saw a third figure. Mr. Mystery's tall form was unmistakable, his red eyes reflecting the rift's strange light like twin rubies. But beside him stood Felicia, her elegant branches rustling with an unnatural confidence that made Depsey's stomach lurch with wrongness. They were already here, waiting, together. "You're early," Depsey said, though his voice came out smaller than intended. The letter had said to meet at sunset. He'd timed it perfectly. How long had they been standing there? Mr. Mystery's smile was as sharp as broken glass. "Or perhaps you're late, my dear rabbit. We've been having quite the interesting conversation about professional standards." Felicia's leaves rustled with what might have been laughter. "I was just telling Mr. Mystery how much I've learned from Dr. Dinglegreen's enhancement sessions. About efficiency. About not letting personal feelings interfere with business." Something cold crawled up Depsey's spine. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. He was meant to arrive first, position himself, wait for the target. Instead, he felt like he'd walked into a conversation that had been going on without him for hours. "Your last assignment," Mr. Mystery continued, his voice carrying the authority of boardroom executions, "was particularly problematic." "Oculus?" Depsey's defensive instincts kicked in. "He was malfunctioning during performances. The elimination was necessary." "The screaming was excessive," Felicia interjected, her enhanced perception apparently allowing her to see right through his ink-protected composure. "Professional eliminations shouldn't leave the agent traumatized for days." Mr. Mystery nodded approvingly at her assessment. 2 days of hiding from your friends, 48 hours of refused communication. This is not the behavior of a stable operative. "I was processing—" "You were compromised," Felicia said, looking into a grove of trees and with the cruelty of someone trying too hard to impress. "Dr. Dinglegreen says emotional attachment is a weakness that can be surgically corrected, but some cases are beyond treatment." The casual cruelty in her voice hit him like ice water. This wasn't the nervous fig tree he'd expected to eliminate. This was someone drunk on new power, enhanced beyond her original nature, and desperate to prove herself worthy of the system that had elevated her. 20 years of perfect service, Depsey protested, hearing his own desperation and hating it. 43 eliminations without a single exposure. "Past performance," Mr. Mystery said with the dismissive tone of an executive reviewing quarterly reports, "is no guarantee of future results. Your friends Chuck and Lucy represent an exposure risk. These complications didn't exist with previous agents." Felicia leaned forward, her branches creaking with predatory interest. "Did Oculus beg?" "I hear they always beg. I imagine 6 eyes would make it quite pathetic." The memory hit him like a physical blow. Those 6 mechanical eyes going wide with understanding. The sound that had followed him through 2 sleepless days. He was malfunctioning. "You're already broken," Felicia observed with clinical detachment. "This is just cleanup." Mr. Mystery watched the exchange with the satisfaction of a director observing a particularly successful rehearsal. Felicia understands efficiency. Nothing to complicate the work. "I would never let guilt compromise me," Felicia said, glancing at Mr. Mystery for approval. "That's the difference between professional and amateur." "Show him," Mr. Mystery suggested, "how a professional handles elimination." The words hit Depsey like vertigo. Elimination. They were talking about his elimination. The letter hadn't been an assignment. It had been a summons to his own disposal. Oculus was becoming too self-aware, Mr. Mystery explained with the patience of someone delivering a performance review. His mechanical compliance was developing cracks. "So is yours, my dear rabbit. Loyalty is measured in current performance, not historical service." Felicia's enhanced perception was reading his emotional state like an open book. "You can see it, can't you? The way he shakes when he thinks about the rift. 20 years of this and he still hasn't learned to enjoy the work." "Felicia doesn't have your complications," Mr. Mystery continued. "Dr. Dinglegreen's enhancements have given her natural aptitude for the profession. No screaming nightmares, no friendship complications, no need for increasing ink doses to suppress basic empathy. The truth crashed over Depsey like cosmic tide. He wasn't here to eliminate Felicia. She was here to eliminate him. The blood money hadn't been protection, it had been preparation. 20 years of chemical dependency, slowly severing his connections to normal cartoon life, making his eventual disappearance easier to explain. Should we keep him as a pet? Felicia asked with the eager cruelty of a student showing off for a teacher. We have a job, Felicia, Mr. Mystery said. First, why don't you both look into the mouth of the rift? The suggestion came out casual, almost friendly, as if he were recommending they enjoy a scenic overlook rather than positioning them for murder. But Depsey's trained instincts recognized the setup, even as his mind reeled from the reversal. They moved toward the edge together, Felicia with confident steps, Depsey with the automatism of 20 years conditioning. The cosmic lights were more intense here, green fog swirling up from impossible depths. Reality bent and twisted at the rift's mouth, cartoon physics giving way to something far more alien. For a moment, desperate hope fluttered in Depsey's chest. Maybe he'd misunderstood. Maybe this was still his assignment, just delivered with unusual theater. Maybe he was still meant to push Felicia, and her enhanced confidence was just Dr. Dinglegreen's improvements talking. He gathered himself, muscles tensing for the familiar motion. 44 and done. One final elimination, and then freedom from the letters, the ink, the endless cycle of blood money and guilt. The green fog swirled around them, Mr. Mystery watching with what looked like glee. Felicia's growing confusion and Depsey steeling himself to do one last job. Flashes of lightning and thunder rolls vibrated the ground. Depsey had not been this close to the mouth of the rift before. This would be a difficult job. He eyed up Felicia's tree branches, considering how he could manage her without the long limbs reaching back and stopping her fall. Depsey felt too close to the rift. Depsey wanted this job. He wanted to see Felicia falling through the green fog, the acknowledgement of failure and loss. He hungered for that look on her face. It was strange when he reached out for Felicia that he felt his shoes give way. A forceful blow to his left shoulder, a spin as the ground gave way, and what was horizontal was vertical, and what was vertical was horizontal. Felicia grew pale for a moment, her deed suddenly disturbing her. Her enhanced strength sent him tumbling toward the cosmic void with shocking efficiency. His last coherent image was of two faces watching his fall. Mr. Mystery grinning with satisfaction at a plan perfectly executed, and Felicia looking somewhat shocked by her own actions, humanity breaking through enhancement for just a moment. The understanding flooded through him as he fell. He'd never been the predator. 20 years of service, 43 eliminations, countless doses of blood money, all of it preparing him to be prey. The system didn't create killers. It created victims who killed other victims until their usefulness expired. The ink jar tumbled from him and landed on the ground by Felicia's root. Out of the brush, Dr. Dinglegreen surveyed his work. Very nice, her said, turning to Mr. Mystery. Looks like we have some new possibilities. Mr. Mystery picked up Depsey's ink bottle, looked at it, and chuckled. Green fog enveloped Depsey as cosmic forces took hold. His last coherent thought before the rift claimed him was of Chuck and Lucy, still searching for a friend who would never answer their calls again. The screaming that followed him into darkness wasn't Oculus's mechanical wailing anymore. It was his own.